You probably know someone who made money in local government, slipped through the cracks, kept their mouth shut, and actually got away with it. That's the narrative that poisons people's decision-making. But here's what the actual prosecution data shows. Most corrupt officials don't get caught because they're sloppy. They get caught because the math forces them into desperation. You need co-conspirators, which means you need witnesses. You need to hide money, which creates a paper trail. You need to keep earning after the first bribe, which means repeating the same pattern until someone breaks. The FBI dedicates entire squads to this, and federal corruption cases convict at over 90% once charges are filed. If you're curious why the criminals who actually get caught always seem shocked, it's because they never calculated the true cost. The thing that kills most schemes isn't detective work. It's someone in your own conspiracy cutting a deal. Tell me in the comments who you think breaks first, and hit subscribe if you want to see how prosecution plea deals actually flip witnesses. This video is for entertainment, education, and economic analysis purposes only. Everything discussed comes from public court records, Department of Justice reports, and published criminology statistics. Nothing here is financial advice, legal advice, or encouragement to commit any crime. If you use this video as a career planning tool, then you deserve what happens next. So you want to be a corrupt city official? You got yourself elected to city council in some mid-size American town. Or maybe you landed a job in the procurement office or the building inspection department. Now you are sitting behind a little desk with a little title and a little bit of authority. And you are thinking about turning that authority into cash, selling zoning variances to developers for envelopes of hundreds, steering construction contracts to your buddy's company for a cut, skimming from the parks department budget like it is a tip jar. You picture a lake house and maybe a boat with a clever name. The median total bribe collected by a convicted local official in America is shockingly modest. Published case analyses put the figure in the low tens of thousands of dollars. That is not per month, and that is not per year. That is often the entire haul before the FBI knocks on your door. Which means you are risking a federal felony for the price of a used Honda Civic with high mileage. Most convicted municipal offenders gathered between $10,000 and $200,000 total. And that total stretches across their entire scheme, which typically ran 3 to 6 years. The multi-million-dollar corruption cases you hear about on the news are extreme statistical outliers. The norm is a guy on a zoning board pocketing $12,000 in restaurant gift cards. The norm is a building inspector accepting $5,000 to overlook a code violation. Department of Justice Public Integrity Section data confirms this pattern across hundreds of prosecutions each year. So your gross annual illicit income, if you follow the median, lands between $5,000 and $25,000. Meanwhile, your legal salary as a city council member might only be $30,000 to begin with. Some city council seats pay as little as $5,000 a year because they are part-time, which means you are committing federal crimes to supplement a part-time job. Now consider what it costs to even get into position to be corrupt. Unlike a drug dealer who can theoretically start on a street corner tomorrow, you need a front-end investment. Running for city council in a mid-sized city costs between $10,000 and $150,000. That covers yard signs, mailers, fundraising dinners, and months of knocking on doors in the rain. First-time candidates win contested local races roughly 20 to 30% of the time. So you might lose 2 or 3 times before you even get the seat. Now, if you are going for an appointed position like procurement officer, then you need credentials. You need years of entry-level government work at government pay scales. Either way, you are spending 5 to 10 years and real money just to reach the starting line. And the opportunity cost alone is staggering. You could have spent those years climbing in the private sector. Instead, you volunteered at pancake breakfasts and sat through 4-hour planning commission meetings about drainage easements, all to reach a position where the biggest bribe available is an envelope at a steakhouse. So the startup cost of your criminal enterprise is a decade of your life and tens of thousands of dollars. So you have finally arrived and you are in the chair. Somebody slides you an envelope or makes a quiet offer. But here is the thing. Corrupt officials almost never work alone. Most schemes involve at least one co-conspirator. That means a contractor, a bagman, a business partner, or a complicit staffer. Every additional person takes a cut, typically 30 to 50% of whatever flows through. So your $20,000 kickback just became $10,000. Then you need somewhere to put that cash. You cannot just deposit $10,000 or more at your local bank branch, because deposits of that size trigger a currency transaction report sent to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And structuring deposits below that threshold is itself a separate federal crime. So maybe you set up a shell company costing a few hundred to a few thousand a year to maintain. Maybe you find an accountant who does not ask too many questions, which means you are now spending money to hide money that you barely have. And every single person involved in your scheme is a future witness for the prosecution. Federal plea agreement data suggests that a large majority of corruption cases involve a cooperating witness. That means your bag man, your contractor buddy, or your cousin who helped set up the shell company. One of them will eventually sit in a room with an FBI agent and trade your freedom for theirs. Every handshake is a future testimony, and every envelope is a future exhibit. Now the clock runs out, because it always runs out. The FBI maintains dedicated public corruption squads in all 56 field offices across the country. This is not a side project for them. Public corruption is consistently ranked among the FBI's top criminal investigative priorities. They have forensic accountants, wiretap specialists, and undercover agents whose entire careers revolve around people exactly like you. Federal criminal cases overall result in conviction over 90% of the time, and public corruption cases follow a similar pattern once charges are filed. The average time between your first corrupt act and your indictment is often several years. That means while you are sitting in your office feeling untouchable, a grand jury may already be reviewing your bank records. Once indicted, the overwhelming majority of federal defendants plead guilty rather than face trial. Your legal defense will cost between $100,000 and $500,000, and federal prosecutors will pursue asset forfeiture of everything connected to your scheme. In many states, a corruption conviction triggers automatic pension forfeiture. That pension you spent 20 years earning, potentially worth hundreds of thousands over your retirement, vanishes in a single sentencing hearing. So the FBI is spending more money investigating you than you will ever steal. Now we calculate the number that actually matters, and that is the risk-adjusted hourly wage of being a corrupt city official. Take a median case with gross illicit income over 5 years of roughly $40,000. Subtract co-conspirator cuts at 40%, which leaves $24,000. Then subtract shell company fees, cash handling friction, and miscellaneous overhead over 5 years. That eats several thousand more, leaving a net illicit income around $15,000 to $20,000 over 5 years. Now estimate how many hours you spent on corrupt activity. That includes the secret meetings, the cash handling, the nervous phone calls, and the covering of tracks. Call it 5 to 10 hours a week over 5 years, totaling 1,300 to 2,600 hours of criminal labor. So your raw hourly rate before risk adjustment lands between $6 and $15 an hour, which means you are earning less than many entry-level retail positions. But we are not done. Apply the 90+% probability of conviction once charged. If convicted, then you face an average sentence of roughly 2 to 5 years. During those years, you lose your salary, estimated at $50,000 per year. That is $100,000 to $250,000 in lost income. You also lose your pension, potentially another few $100,000 in lifetime value. You pay legal defense fees of $100,000 to $500,000, and the court orders you to pay restitution for everything you took. So your risk-adjusted total return is deeply negative, several $100,000 at minimum. Your effective hourly rate is catastrophically negative. You would have made more money per hour standing on a sidewalk holding a sign that says free hugs. Maybe you think you will be the exception who gets out clean. But federal case data shows 3 dominant pathways to indictment. The first is the most common, and that is your partner flips. Your co-conspirator gets pulled over for a traffic stop, or has a tax issue, or gets investigated for something unrelated. The FBI offers them a deal, and they take it. They always take it. The second pathway is an audit or accidental discovery. Maybe a substitute comptroller notices a bank account that should not exist. And that is exactly what happened in Dixon, Illinois, where Rita Crundwell stole roughly $53.7 million over about 20 years. A temporary replacement looked at the books and made one phone call. 2 decades of scheming undone by a vacation day. The third pathway is a federal sting operation. The person offering you the bribe was an FBI agent the entire time. They recorded every conversation, every handshake, and every envelope. You never had a chance. And there is no fourth pathway labeled retire comfortably and never get caught. It does not appear in the data in any meaningful way. Not in the era of digital banking surveillance, forensic accounting software, and millions of suspicious activity reports filed every single year. Now for the final comparison. 3 stick figures and their 30-year outcomes. Figure 1 is a regular city employee. She shows up, does the job, never takes an envelope, and retires with a pension. Her total lifetime compensation, including salary, benefits, and retirement, lands between $1.5 and $2.5 million. She sleeps well, and she has no lawyer. Her biggest stress is the office coffee machine. Figure 2 is a shift manager at a fast food restaurant. He makes about $35,000 a year, and no one from the FBI has ever surveilled him. Over 30 years, he earns about $1.05 million, and his evenings are free of wiretap anxiety. Figure 3 is the corrupt city official. After factoring in the bribes collected, the co-conspirator cuts, the overhead, the legal fees, the prison time, the lost salary, the destroyed pension, and the permanent felony record that makes him unemployable in any government or regulated industry for the rest of his life. His net 30-year outcome is deeply negative. We are talking negative several $100,000, plus years in a federal facility with fluorescent lighting and no lake house, plus a divorce because criminal conviction dramatically increases the likelihood of marital dissolution. This is a mathematical certainty dressed up as ambition. The only people who reliably profit from municipal corruption are the federal defense attorneys, and they bill by the hour, legally. So you want to be a corrupt city official? I hope your real answer, after all of this, is no. Because the calculator says no. The FBI says no. And your future pension, the one you get to keep if you just do your job, says no louder than both of them combined.